Good Monday morning to you. This is Morning Coffee with Brigid, and I am Brigid Burke. We are now past that eventful full moon, which I'll talk just a little bit about. I've talked a lot about it, so I don't want to belabor it. Good morning, Alex. It's been quite an interesting weekend, I guess, hasn't it? I'm actually, and good morning, Joanne. I'm actually just, this morning has been kind of interesting because for me, just on a personal level, there's been a lot of emotional stuff that has, good morning and hello. There's been a lot of stuff that has come up in the last few days, and so as I'd mentioned, a lot of the changes that are going on are both sort of on a personal level and also on a bigger scale, on a more collective scale. So so I have probably a few different topics this morning that I'll probably talk about. I've been talking about Morrigan the last couple of days, and interestingly, she came through quite strong this morning, which she hasn't, not that she hasn't been there, but she just kind of in a while, she's kind of more taken a back seat to the Azrael channelings and things like that, but she seemed to have something really strong to say this morning. And you might say, well, how do you know that? There's a different, well, first of all, there's a difference in the voice, and there's also and again, when I say voice, it's not like I'm hearing voices in my head. It's just that there's just something about the tone of what I'm getting, and also where I feel it in the body that tells me who I'm talking to. It's hard to explain, but it was pretty clear to me, and I got clarification that was in fact her, and and basically she was saying the kind of thing that I was saying over the last couple of days, that we've been very wary of this full moon, and again, when I have a vision of Kali and Shiva dancing connected with this full moon, I'm like, ooh, that seems like there could be some pretty substantial endings there. And again, I don't fully know. We know what at least one of the endings is now, but I don't. Yeah, I feel like that's not all there is to it. Like there's usually more, and I'm kind of bracing myself, saying, so what else am I going to find out this week? But basically, it's saying, yeah, there's going to be some major changes, but they're going to take you to exactly everything that you want. And I feel like that's true for a lot of people. I think we've, the question becomes, it was, I don't remember if this was a message I initially got, or to be honest, this could have been part of a conversation I've had with some other healers that I work with. But I feel like there was a sense of, when there was a timeline shift, it's like there's either people who are going to get on the new timeline or they're not. And, and where people end up going, might determine what the path is, or kind of where they're going to end up going with all of the change. But I have felt like I've shifted onto some other kind of timeline. And like I said, being the kind of person I am, I don't say that in a very kind of light and fluffy way. I mean, there's a lot going on, both with time as the way I perceive it, and also other things that are happening that just kind of tell me that, like, yeah, I feel like I'm in a different space here, So first let's talk about the predictions. I've decided that what I should do is put a post together that I will put probably here on Instagram. It'll probably also on Facebook. I possibly might make a short video. I don't know if I have the time to, because I also do another live stream today over on the Katonia channel, and I've got all kinds of things to finish. I've got book covers to finish and get out for a book that's coming out. I've got Katonia podcast comes out today, and also all of my readings come out today. Now they're all done. All the material is ready to go, but I just haven't uploaded a lot of it yet, and uploading takes some time. So I need to upload everything and kind of get it up and get it going. So yeah, so we will see that that kind of stuff coming up today, and so I don't know if I'm gonna have time to make a video, I guess is the point. But I also feel like, as I was kind of mentioning in this past week, that predictions that I've made are something that I feel like I should get out there, because it's very easy to say to somebody, like, when something happens, go, oh yeah, I saw that. It's like past tense, like, it's like, oh, did you? You know what I mean? Even if it's true that yes, I did, and I just didn't say anything about it. When people are looking at you in terms of whether or not your predictions are correct, I'm like, okay, well, you should put them out in advance, and I mean, and risk the fact that they could be wrong. But put them out there anyway. So far, and I got several messages yesterday afternoon from people who were saying to me, like I was talking to my nephew the other day, and I'm sure he's skeptical of a lot of things I do, although he's just kind of like, okay, kind of whatever. But I got a text message. I had been out yesterday, and I got a text message on the way back from him saying, well, you're half right, because we found out that Joe Biden dropped out of the presidential race. And I did say Biden was not going to be a candidate. So I did pursue a little further, and again, I'm probably going to put some of this in a post, again, just to see where it goes. But it looks to me like, okay, because remember, the prediction was not only that Biden is not going to be in the race, but Trump is also not going to be in the race. Okay, and for Trump, it's not going to be that he's going to drop out. It's going to be that it seems like there's going to be some kind of physical thing. He's going to have, and not another, not an assassination attempt or whatever. It's not going to be anything like that. It's going to be, although that did come up. It said, yeah, well, there will be shots fired, but it's not going to affect him. Ultimately, it's going to be something that's already going on in his body that's going to end up affecting him. And like I said, the words heart attack and stroke keep coming into my head, but that doesn't necessarily mean that's going to be what it is. But it seems to be at least that type of thing. So I don't know. I mean, we'll see. Good morning, Suda. So we have that. The other predictions, though, when it came to the election, so I don't know. That's something that still remains to be seen. We don't know if that's going to happen, but it did seem to indicate that the matchup, because I said, okay, well, if it's not going to be Trump-Biden, good morning, what is going to be the matchup? And really what I kind of got was like, I know Kamala Harris right now is the person that Biden has endorsed and it's going to go forward, but literally still over and over again, it's saying whoever the two contenders are, they're not going to be any females. Okay, there's not going to be any females. Which, again, in light of the information that's coming out right now, but the fact that Harris is trying to win the nomination, a lot of people are treating it as a foregone conclusion that she has it. And while I certainly, I don't have any issue with her as a nominee, now it seems like I'm seeing more like about, what actually came up this morning was more like Gavin Newsom would be more the person that they might end up putting forward. And that Vance would be the person, if anything happened to Trump on the other side, who would run. So those are the things that I got. And I'm just saying, those are predictions. Whether they're going to come true or not, who the heck knows? But that's what I've gotten. And I said, okay, well, if I'm going to be honest about kind of doing prediction work and stuff, then you put it out there and you risk the fact that maybe you're going to get it right and maybe you're not. So anyway, those were the predictions I had. And we'll see. Okay, so I don't want to talk endlessly about predictions. The other kind of thing that came up with this full moon is the idea, okay, one of the things we talk about a lot, we see a lot of hanged man energy that's come up where it says, look, hanged man, in addition to making a sacrifice, is this idea of looking at the bigger picture, right? Like looking at something, hanging upside down and looking at something from a different perspective. And one of the things that kind of came to me over the last few days, and again, just relative to some of my own experience, which I won't get into, in a personal way here, but what came up for me was the idea, a lot of times, especially those of you familiar with like behaviorist psychology and things like that, will say, in life we try to seek pleasure and avoid pain, right? There's that kind of thing of we seek, that we only want good things to happen and we want to avoid bad things. And that we don't like the experience of feeling bad and so on and so forth. But there was kind of a flip-flop point of view that pointed out and says, no, what if people like feeling bad? Okay, that was the flip-flop view. What if people enjoy feeling bad? What if people enjoy feeling like they're hurt, like they're powerless? What if that is actually a source of pleasure rather than a source of pain? Now, stop and think about that for a moment. But when I think about it, I'm like, not necessarily that weird. And I think it's one of those things that we don't, it feels that way sometimes. Yeah, it's not always something that we want to acknowledge because we would like to, because if we are at a place of crisis or a place of trauma, sometimes being in that space, there can be different things that are connected with it. If you feel like you are somebody who's isolated, sometimes being in a state of victimhood will make people pay attention to you if you're not. And maybe if that's what you want, it's not the best way to achieve the goal, but goal achieved, right? Or it just may make you feel justified maybe in withdrawing from the world, or make you, and mind you, I feel like I'm saying that with a certain level of criticism and judgment, like, well, you shouldn't do that. But I don't know that I actually want to say that. It does make me wonder if, when we're going about the whole process of healing and of psychological healing, are we going about it from the point of view that we assume that a person always has to be in a space where they're going to feel good and happy and empowered? Like, we think that that's the way it's supposed to go. But I'm like, is it? I mean, does somebody have to pass through a phase of feeling like, being able to feel that whatever their pains are, that their pains are validated in some way? And again, it even feels kind of odd to say it, but I do feel like there's a truth to that. And I'm not saying that as though I'm looking at this in other people. I can look at this in myself too. This is not just about like anything I see in clients or anything else. Balance is key. It could be a balancing thing, but I also wonder if it's just, because sometimes people will go through, okay, they will have healing sessions done, or they might, like Joanne, as you would know, go to a therapist, or they might, do certain kinds of work to, to try to find that peace in their life, to find that place where they feel peaceful and happy. And I just wonder sometimes if there is a purpose to allowing somebody to feel that pain. I think like anything, it could be a situation, just like you're if you're in a place. Okay, if we look at Nine of Cups energy, okay, in the tarot, Rider-Waite Nine of Cups, where you have the guy who's sitting there with all the cups behind him, and he's satisfied, and he's like this. Okay, that's that card of emotional satisfaction, of having what it is that you want. But once you have what you want, you may close yourself off to other things, right? For the person who is maybe, say, in more that Three of Swords space, where they feel, or even Nine of Swords, where you feel that very, very deep sorrow, there's something about being in that sorrowful space too that is, now the negative of that, you could fall into a pattern of victimhood. But there are people who just, for whatever reason, that's the state that they like to be in. And it may be that they want to be in that state because there's something comfortable about it. It provides them with a sense of security and comfort. Just being the mythology professor that I am, I'm going to put that hat on for a minute, and I'm going to talk a little bit about, just briefly, the story, the Sophocles play, which is called Philoctetes. Okay, and Philoctetes he's not that well known to a lot of people. Like, when people think about Greek mythology or the Trojan War, they think of Achilles, right? They think of Odysseus. They might think of Agamemnon. Those are names everybody has heard, right? Not everyone has heard the name Philoctetes. And Philoctetes is a guy, he's actually a very important guy in the Trojan War. He is with Odysseus and Agamemnon. He's one of what they call the Achaean League, right? He's with all of those. But what happens is, and I think I might have spoken about him the other day with respect to Athena, where he accidentally walks into a sacred grove of Athena where he's not allowed to be, and he gets bitten by a serpent. Okay, and once he's bitten by that serpent, he gets a wound that's almost like a gangrene type wound, and it festers and it stinks. Quite frankly, the odor of it is just almost intolerable. And he's on a ship with all of these men, and they're like, we just can't bear your injury, and they don't have anybody who can treat him really, so they dump him on an island and they take off. And they go on to the war without him. They leave him and his armor and everything on this island, saying, oh yeah, we'll come back for you. 7 years before they would come back for him, okay? So this is a guy who has a pretty good reason to feel ticked off, right? And he is a legitimate victim in that sense. I mean, he gets the wound completely by accident through no fault. I mean, he did a thing he wasn't supposed to do, but it wasn't a conscious thing. You know, he didn't consciously and intentionally say, heck with it, I'm gonna go into this space I'm not allowed to be. He just did it by mistake. And now he has this injury, and he's somebody who actually needs healing, who needs help. And Odysseus can't be bothered with him. He just dumps him. And so think about that. Think about those kind of scenarios where we feel like we are in a space where a misfortune has happened through no fault of our own, and people just kind of turn around and go, whatever, deal with it, I don't care, you know? And when we feel like we're in a space where we're really alone, and it's like, wow, nobody is going to help, nobody cares. There's almost something about, I don't know, it's almost like the way in which the hurt, in which we feel justified in being angry at other people about our hurt, right? It's like something, it provides a justification, because a lot of times I think when we're angry at people, we feel guilty about that. That's where I think that can be at least one aspect of depression, because I've talked about depression as being anger turns inward. And so you can turn that anger, you can just pull it back in and say, well, because, nobody listens to what I have to say anyway, so I'm just going to pull it in, and I'm going to just, and so you kind of fall into this space where you drift away from everybody and you're depressed, and you're kind of almost in this kind of dream space that's away from everybody else. Now, clinical depression is something a lot more serious, because there's no feeling about anything, Anger is bad. Well, yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, anger, it is. But but this is the thing. When people feel it, and this has also come up with several client sessions and things I've had, where people have felt either deep anger or deep sorrow in a session where maybe they want to cry, or maybe they want to, and they're like, and they don't. So much judgment for anger. Yeah, exactly. And, but there is, they say to me like, well, I felt like I didn't have permission to, and I'm like, of course you always have permission to express whatever emotions you're feeling with me. I'm not somebody who's going to take that expression of emotion as, oh, I hate you, the healer, or whatever. You need to express the emotion. And a lot of times we feel we're not allowed to do that. So it becomes almost a precious thing that we hang on to, is that emotion, because it's something that, and this kind of also goes back to the whole idea of validation. Absolutely, yeah. Validation. It's, we want our feelings validated. And a lot of times too, I think when we also live in this environment where you see people doubling down on things that we are like, what the heck? Like, the facts don't support that point of view at all. Why are you doubling down on it? Because instead of hearing like, well, actually you think this and you're mistaken, this is what the facts show, what people hear instead is, you're telling me I'm stupid and wrong. Okay? So they immediately double down, because who are you to tell me I'm stupid and wrong? Which again, might not even be what's going on. We feel we cannot be our authentic self due to societal expectations, I feel. Masks. Well, yes. Yes, social expectation, there's a way that you have to feel socially. But then when we have all of these, and negative emotions are part of this. Like part of who we are as human beings is that we have negative emotions. We may get angry. We may feel hatred towards people. We may feel, we may feel very, very deep sorrow or grief. And a lot of times what's kind of the thing that people are told? Well, you need to keep a stiff upper lip. You need, that very masculine thing. You need to get over it. You need to not allow yourself to drown yourself in your sorrows. Don't give in to that, to being over dramatic. All these things that we hear around emotion. You get angry about something. Whoa, watch yourself there. And sometimes these are not even people making really, truly huge expressions of anger. It could just be, I'm sorry, I don't agree with you. And people go, hey, watch it. You'll see that kind of thing happen. So I think there's a certain preciousness to those feelings for us. And I don't know. I think that's a way that we sometimes have to look at things when we're trying to heal. because what we're looking for is a validation of those feelings. And I think sometimes victimhood lets us feel that way. So back to Philoctetes, not to derail myself too much, which I'm really good at doing. Philoctetes is, so he's left on this island, okay? And the Sophocles play, they're coming towards the end of the war, and there's a prophecy, an oracle from one of the seers that says, you're not going to win this war without the armor of Heracles. Okay, now Heracles is dead at this point, or taken up, he's become immortal or whatever the heck he's done. In any case, he's not there anymore. And the person who received his armor, who was with him at the time of death, was Philoctetes. So Philoctetes has the armor of Heracles. So they're like, right, we have to go back and get him and get the armor. Because apparently he had a destiny to have a role in finishing the war. And Philoctetes is, in fact, a central figure in finishing the war, not in the Iliad, but in what they call the epic cycle literature. Some of the other stories that talk about what his role was. I think mainly it was the Aethiopus, I think, is mainly where he's written about. But in any case, so in the play, what happens is they go back and they have Achilles' son, because Achilles, of course, has died too. Or has he died at that point? I can't remember. I think he might have at this point. In any case, Achilles' son Neoptolemus goes with them, and Odysseus is like, right, okay, he's going to be so mad at me, so he doesn't really know you, so you need to go to him and get friendly with him and get the armor. And Neoptolemus is kind of on the fence. He's like, I just don't feel good about this. I feel like I'm manipulating this poor guy who's been left here with this wound. He feels bad for, as you should, he feels bad for Philoctetes. You just kind of totally screwed this guy over, and now you want me to kind of be be the fall guy here, And so Neoptolemus does that, and Philoctetes does start to trust him, tells him how much he hates Odysseus, and blah, 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 And eventually he offers to give Neoptolemus the armor. And Neoptolemus is reluctant to take it. And then Odysseus then appears and says, no, of course you're going to take it. And then he realizes, and then Philoctetes gets all upset and starts, yelling at Odysseus. And Odysseus is like, look, yes, okay, this happened, but, you have a chance now to come with us to get your wound healed, because they were going to take him to the temple of Asclepius, or I don't know, I can't remember if it was a temple or a cave, or it was something like that. Anyway, he was going to get proper healing, and you have a role to play in finishing this war. And so, are you going to come with us or not? Yes, I know you're upset. Are you going to come with us or not? And he keeps going, no, I'm not going anywhere with you. So Odysseus goes, fine, we're just going to take the armor and go then. And he's like, you can't leave me here. And it goes back and forth for several pages of the actual play, if you're reading it. And at some point, the chorus jumps in and says to Philoctetes, look, this is a problem of your own making. You have a solution. You are going to be able to move beyond the victim state that you're in and have actual healing. And you're just fighting, no, I'm not going to do it. No, you can't leave me here. No, I'm going to do it. No, I'm not going to do it. He keeps waffling. And finally, and I don't know if people kind of view it as a Deus Ex Machina kind of thing, but the ghost of Heracles appears and says to him, look, get up, go. And so Philoctetes finally gets up and goes with them, and he does get the healing, and he is the hero who wins the war, who helps them reach a decisive victory with the armor of Heracles. So he goes to meet his destiny. But for a while there, it's okay, it's a case of where he is a legitimate victim, okay? It's not that he's not a victim, okay? He definitely is. But it's almost like he's, because his voice hasn't been heard all of this time, there's something about his victimhood that that feels like something he wants to stay in. Because, and a lot of times you will see that with people where they just want to make their voices heard about something. And maybe what they're saying is what makes other people uncomfortable. Or maybe it's something that, socially, as we were just talking about, you're not supposed to say those things. But you're getting a lot of that lately. I think about that with my novels. Like I said, my novels are not about my personal life, but they do express feelings that I feel like I'm in kind of a way that, I feel like is not, I mean, again, still some people read some of my novels and go, oh, I didn't like this about it or like that because it's something that made them feel uncomfortable. But I'm like, yeah, but the whole point is that I'm trying to express something that's uncomfortable in a way that I feel is not going to be harmful to other people, right? So there has to be a validation of those emotions. There has to be a validation. Now, like any emotion, I mean, it's not a place that we're going to end up staying, because when you stay there, that's when it becomes a problem. You have a period of time. There is a point at which it's just kind of like, okay, there's an opportunity for healing. But sometimes even when there's an opportunity and people say, so fixing a label to someone is easier than dealing with it. Okay, explain. I'm not sure. It's like, I don't think so. I mean, I think it's just, there seems to be, I think what I'm saying here is that there is a sense that when we validating emotions, it's easier than, oh, okay, I see what you're saying. Right. Okay. So it's very much, right. It's easier to, right. Exactly. Yes. It's easier to say, oh, that person's just being dramatic. Oh, that person is just this and that. And just because a lot of times it's something, because remember, there's projection that goes on all the time. So we may have emotions that we're uncomfortable with, but we may have a different way of managing those emotions. Maybe we don't feel there's something we should express to people. Or maybe we're not comfortable expressing them with people. And that's fair enough too. But when somebody does, then it becomes like, oh God, that person, it's like that person did something that was taboo. But I don't know. It's almost like the expression needs to happen in some form. And the question then just becomes is when does holding on to it become a problem? Okay. When does holding on to it become a problem? And sometimes I think what ends up being an impediment to people's healing is that maybe they feel that they're kind of, the healing is a way of kind of bypassing those emotions and saying, well, we're just going to move you to a state where you don't feel that anymore. But they're kind of be like, but to a certain degree, it's like those emotions have been, I don't know, they're part of who they are. They're part of what they want, what they want to express. Part of their story that they feel they want to be heard, or that they want to have, or a script that maybe they don't feel has been invalidated in a way. I think it makes them feel justified. Well, yes, exactly. Validated, justified, right. Feeling like, I'm not having these emotions for no reason just because I'm, weak and can't handle life or whatever. Whatever the things that people say are, oh, you just like to make trouble where there isn't any. And truthfully, a lot of these emotions may come out of misunderstood spaces. For example, the person who thinks that they're alone, sometimes what the therapist will point out is just kind of like, well, what about this person? And what about this person? The reality may be that person's not alone. They may think that somebody hates them or feels a certain way about them, and then you find out no, that person doesn't feel that way about you at all. But it's like it's almost like they need to be shown that the script isn't true. No, the script that you're following isn't one. But again, until they have some kind of a validation that script isn't true. It's like that's the thing that they hang on to. It's like part of the identity, the way in which either they're maligned or they're not understood. Okay? And I think we all have something we feel that way about, whether, again, we all manage it differently. But one of the barriers, and this was talked about in my Rouhani class too, one of the barriers to healing is that sometimes because people may be in that state where they're reluctant to give up that, because they may feel that letting go of those emotions in some way might be invalidating them and might be therefore invalidating something about their identity by moving past it. So that's just an interesting angle that's kind of come up for me as I've been working over the last couple of weeks maybe. And I'm thinking, yeah, there's just certain stuff that, because I don't think that negative emotions are always something we want to let go of. So, and again, I don't say that in an accusing kind of a way. It's just something I think a lot of times we don't think about, because when we think about healing, we say person wants to move from the negative space to the positive space. But the person has to examine where those negative emotions are going to fit in and whether or not it's worth hanging on to them. Super interesting, working through all this. Yeah, and it's interesting because so am I. I'm kind of talking about it. No, you're absolutely correct. Yeah, it's just, yeah, it's something a lot of times we just don't think about, because we may have certain, when everything around us is going great and we still feel sorrowful, is it because there's a certain aspect of that sorrow that we identify with, or that that validates us. And I mean, I'm saying that in a very non-judgmental way. It's just, is that something that we do? When I think about it, I try to use a lot of that kind of feeling as inspiration for things that I'm writing, because I know that the feelings that I'm expressing are feelings that other people have. And, they may be around female empowerment or sovereignty, or they may be around stuff like that. Okay. Or they may be around other themes about relationships, things that ideas we grew up with about relationship. And maybe those ideas did not prove to be true. And there's also, I think that also can get into grief, the sorrow that we have when we feel we have to let go of an idea that maybe, it's like the Santa Claus isn't real thing. It's kind of like you have to let go of that and just realize that maybe whatever the image was that we had might mean something different. Well, yes, healthy coping strategies are the key. I wonder too if there's a way just to get beyond coping. You know what I mean? To just get into a space in the same way that I remember reading a book after 9/11 called Beyond Tolerance. It's like, do we want to get beyond a point from where we're tolerating stuff or just coping with stuff, to saying, kind of in that tantric way, I embrace all of this as part of who I am, including the places where I feel sorrowful about stuff, or where I feel angry or negative, or if I don't like something, maybe I don't have to beat myself up and feel guilty about the fact that I don't like this thing, or that I don't feel comfortable with this thing, or that I got angry about this thing. A lot of times we really tell ourselves, like, I don't have permission to be that way. And again, from the social angle, I often feel that, okay, if these are things that are not appropriate to the public sphere, I mean, it depends on how angry you are and how you're thinking of acting out. Obviously, people who are more violent forms of acting out, well, yeah, you can't, well, you shouldn't. I mean, I would say that's a case of shouldn't, that's not, so the question is then, what is the safe expression? I have friends that, when they get angry, they go to the shooting range and they just, do that. Or people who, like I said, I write. Of late, I feel like an actor in a script. It's kind of liberating. Actually, that's a good way to look at it. Yeah, you're playing a role. Because, and if you don't take the role too seriously, I mean, that, I don't know, that may be the thing too. I mean, if we can learn not to take it all so seriously, maybe it would have a different impact. And that's certainly a very Zen way of looking at it, is just saying, well, we're all actors here playing a role. And to a certain degree, all of it's illusory. But for the person for where it doesn't feel that way quite yet, it's kind of like, I think that's something, because certainly, yes, that's why healthy strategies help you get to, because you recognize the pattern. I like the actor analogy. Yeah, it's, well, yeah, exactly. And to your point, Joanne, I think it's like, yeah, you want to, that's literally what I do in my coaching, is when I have people who kind of go over something over and over again, okay, what's the pattern? And what is the narrative, that you're coming from? And then, and what, what is the narrative that you're telling yourself? What's the one that you're coming from? And what's your honest feelings about it too? A lot of times, because I can't tell you how many times I work with people who will say, Well, I think this, but I really shouldn't be thinking this. It's like, but you do think this. It's not, and again, it's just not, even if it's a thought that I think is a thought, even if it's a thought I don't personally agree with, it's a thought that you have. And that's your thought. And, you know, you need to look at that and say, okay, this is my thought. This is legitimately how I feel about it. And I think the social piece of it, when you're trying to work through it, has to be kind of thrown away for the moment and just say, okay, forget about whether or not this is a socially acceptable thought. I need to think it. You know, I can't keep policing myself on my own emotions, because when we do that, then we don't actually find a way to potentially, maybe I shouldn't call them coping strategies, but navigation skills. Yeah, well, exactly. Yeah. Just how do we navigate those emotions? How do we navigate that playing field? Because it's always going to be there. There's always going to be something there. But I just think that that's an aspect of things that we just don't really think about that much. About what, you know, kind of like what they would call it the uses of darkness, right? What are the uses of those feelings that we have that are, you know, that people would say that we need to purge from ourselves. I often talk about, you know, like Tantra and Tantric viewpoint, which says that every piece of you is sacred. Every part of you, even the stuff that we think is impure, shall we say, or maybe in Western culture what they would call sinful. That's all part of who you are. I'm not a big believer in sin, because to me, I just think you are who you are, and you don't need anybody. I mean, I understand the need for social order, you know, that I understand that we all have to kind of have a set of rules that we agree to, a social contract, you know, as to how we're going to behave. But that doesn't change the fact that we have certain feelings, and it doesn't change the fact that there are safe ways to deal with those feelings. Going back to Dionysus again, that was the reason for the old Bacchic rituals. It allowed people to get out emotions that were not socially acceptable. And when we moved into a space where we said, oh, no, everything, both in the public sphere and in the spiritual sphere, has to be sober and reflective, and you know, can't have all of this wildness. Carl Jung says that throws the gates to hell wide open, because now, because the simple fact is that when you start to repress all that material, then after a while you're unable to see it in yourself, but you still do see it in other people around you. That's where you have the person who says, I'm okay, it's all of you people around me who are wrong. Because they're not able to see that in themselves, and they're not able to see that that's a thing that they hang on to, or a thing that maybe they have shame about. So, interesting. Our central card for today is suppression, right? 10 of Wands, right? Don't make these things up. Yeah, we have the suppression card at the center here. So, yeah, that's literally the thing. That you are pushing it down, that you are suppressing it. And after a while, this affects your physical health, it affects your life force, so to speak. And, you know, and there's always things like that. I remember, I think it was Robert Bly who had said that, you know, he described the human shadow, the Jungian shadow, as the big bag that we drag around of all the things that we are that we're not supposed to be. Okay? And the inner feeling, yeah, there's the inner feeling, right? It's like there ends up being a sense that we, because of the way that is, because it's there and it's kind of out of reach, we're always just looking at the gray. We're not looking at the colorful part in between. That's the cornerstone of personality disorder. And wow, synchronicity with that card. Yeah. You know, you are definitely, you know, this is this idea that we are kind of keeping this kind of thing inside of ourselves. And we postpone doing something about it. This is another view of postponement, is that we're not, we're reluctant to deal with it because we're not exactly ready to let go of it. But with the suppression card, it could be something that could be quite literally killing you inside. You know what I mean? It could be adding to your stress. You know, we do know that stress changes our DNA, which is actually kind of a scary statement. A lot of people start going, oh crap, now I got to get unstressed, which just makes you more stressed. So, and our external feeling, okay, we're back to the dream card, right? our comparison to other people, the way in which we think. And that's interesting because it almost might indicate that we're looking for a rescue, especially if our feelings of sorrow and shame and everything are around isolation or around feeling like I'm on my own. I'm the only one who thinks this way. I'm not understood by others, right? There's the dream that other people have it perfect and it's just us, which isn't usually the case. So the advice card we have is the Creator. And that actually does go directly to what I've just suggested, which is that energy is a creative energy. The energy of anger, the energy of suppression, rather than just suppressing it, do something with it. And as I've said to different clients, it's like you can do things, you can write. I know some people who are now writing poetry. I know some people who are now, it doesn't matter. And a lot of times because we're in this productive mode, we think, oh, well, if I'm doing this, then I have to sell it, or I have to do something with it, or you don't have to do anything with it. You can just have it for you. I mean, there's not, if you want to paint a picture and, okay, so maybe you're not, Picasso or Matisse or whatever, who cares? I mean, you're you and you're finding a way to express something. Maybe you want to do things. Oh, good morning, Melissa. You can do things however you want. I mean, your creative expression is a way through, and sometimes these kinds of emotions can be creative fuel. They can push us to create certain things, or push us to look at these different aspects of life, and to find a way to integrate them. I mean, art definitely, yes, just get the work out of you. Yeah, exactly. Just do the thing. And if it sits in a notebook or on your computer or on your tablet, phone, whatever, and it doesn't go anywhere, that's okay. If you decide you want to share it with people, that's also okay. It's just a matter of, that's one of the great things about the internet and social media, is that now we have this forum where people can share with each other. And yeah, not everybody's going to like or agree with what you do, but you also will find people who will be supportive of what you do. So it's just trying to get those feelings out by simply telling people you're not allowed to have that feeling. It doesn't, I just don't, I mean, again, on a social level, I may understand why certain ideas are not acceptable in that sphere. But at the same time, it's like, well, so for example, okay, if somebody has this idea that, I think everybody of this particular race or group or nationality should be killed. Yeah, you've got problems. Where's that coming from? Why do you think such an extreme thing is the thing? Like that's a little bit more that's more psychotic. And yeah, that's a definite violation of social contract. So yeah, so those kind of feelings, it's like, okay, that's when you really do actually need to talk to somebody, serious professional. Like if somebody came to me to say that, I'd be like, okay, yeah, you definitely don't, you need beyond me. It's beyond where I am at. But then the question is, like, what brings you to that point? What brings you to that conclusion? But a lot of things, but most of us are not dealing with that. We're dealing with other things, dealing with feelings of, when we go out in public, women always worried about how their bodies look. Men who, or even, anybody worried about that, worrying about, what we eat or what we're wearing or how we appear. There's all kinds of stuff that we can feel weird, odd about. Life decisions around our career. Oh, you can't make that decision. That's unacceptable. That's irresponsible. Well, maybe it's not, Our outcome card is courage. Again, it comes right around to having the courage to be who you are. Okay? And part of who you are is going to be, who you are is not always going to be all sunshine and rainbows. There's part of who we are that isn't that way. And of course that kind of gets into the kind of work that I tend to do over on Katonia. It's like, yeah, let's look at the dark. And I did have a client who had said to me, yes, the authentic self. Client who said to me the other day, but aren't we all working in the light? And I said, well, I'm kind of suspicious of people who just work in the light. Because to me, if everything is just light and light and light, I'm like, Carl Jung also said, the brighter the light, the darker the shadow. What's behind the light there that we're bypassing here, that we're not looking at? And I think all of it needs to be worked with, and I don't think there's anything that seems to frighten some people. Yeah. It's just, But I'm like, it's really not, it's just, and I don't know, but it's interesting how we can be very, but I'm a Jungian. Yeah, well, I mean, Jung gets a bad rap, but, he's definitely not, and, oh goodness, I got this card again. Didn't I get this card yesterday or the other day? I got Opening to Love. Didn't I get it again? It's just, second time. As I decided to use the Gateway Oracle again. But I think this is all, but I think a part of the process of Opening to Love is, yes, I did get it. And it was just, that's part of it though, is recognizing, so, okay, maybe this is just another kind of final thought on this, because I know we're getting to 7:15 here, but I think kind of another way that one might think about it is, you want to validate those emotions. Those emotions need to be heard. If you just treat them like, I'm going to cure you of those emotions, or you have to, that's a bad thing, and you like, we're going to excise it like a tumor or something. You have to find out where that fits in, because that is part of who we are and part of our experience that needs validation. That's shadow stuff that needs validation, in addition to, all the stuff about us that people like, that is socially acceptable, right? We also have to validate what's not that. And so I think this is why we may cling to those things, because those are aspects of ourselves that we feel like we need to protect. When we operate from the heart, we're operating from our authentic self, right? And that's why they say vulnerability is actually the strongest show of strength, because you're willing to say, okay, you know what? Even if people don't like me, I'm willing to be who I am. Even if there's somebody who's critical of me, or somebody, I'm still willing to engage with people and be who I am, and not cut myself off because it's more comfortable to stay in a space where I'm looking, where the wound actually is some kind of, I don't know, the wound actually is something that makes us feel better in some way. It makes us feel like we're validated. It's the validation we're not getting in the external world that we're getting from ourselves in a certain way about that. 7 Sacred Teachings from Indigenous People. Is that a book, or is that just it sounds like a book, or maybe it's just a thing. But this is it. Finding the place for all this stuff is interesting, and but that's definitely part of the process. I mean, you're going to we have to look at that stuff and not look at it as, oh yeah, I have that feeling. That's a thing you need. Courage, humility. There's there's a thing that you need. Courage, humility. There's 7 that interconnect. Okay. Yeah, it's probably it's something you can Google. It's probably out there. Yeah, you're right. And it's just, yeah, now my crown chakra is going crazy right now. So I don't know. So I just think that as we're going through our own healing processes individually, that's something that we want to think about. And when we have a negative emotion, instead of going, no, I'm not allowed to have that negative emotion, bad, it's like that Monty Python sketch with the Masons, bad, wrong, it's like, yeah, it's just, no, that's that. We don't want to pound them down into that suppressed space. We want to say, and if we feel like it's something that we're going to be judged for or rejected for, yeah, no, I'm laughing too. Then it's something that we might, the safer way to deal with it might be to deal with it creatively. But you have a right to deal with it, and you have a right to express it, and people have a right. I think that's also why I get annoyed sometimes. I don't know. It's a fine line when you have teenagers who write very, very dark things, and people say, oh, we're going to take this kid out because he's probably going to be a serial killer, and we're going to put him in. And a lot of times I've seen it happen to people where it's not that at all. That person's just trying to find a creative way to express dark feelings without actually doing something like that. But we don't need to pull somebody out and just always fix them up, acknowledge and release. You have to, or even just integrate. Find a place for them. Find a place for where that where that might fit in, because maybe there is an aspect of that. Maybe it can be a fuel for something that is creative. And like I said, the range of our experience shouldn't be limited to just the things that people find acceptable. I mean, our range of our experience is going to be beyond that. And part of accepting ourselves has to be accepting that not everything that we are is going to be acceptable to everybody else. So anyway, just some thoughts for today. Like I said, hope you guys had a very good and safe full moon. Everything went good for everybody. I will be back tomorrow morning. Thank you guys as always for joining me. I will. I've got a few things I've got to take care of today. Like I said, I got to get podcast up, tarot videos up, tarot live stream, Kenotonia live stream. I will be doing it noon today. You're welcome, and you're welcome, and I don't. You're welcome, and and I don't know. I don't know quite what I'm doing today. So for the Kenotonia live stream, but the podcast over there is going to be on the sirens. So so you can look out for that this morning if you follow me on Kenotonia podcast. Have a great rest of your day. And thank you, Melissa, too. And so I will talk to you guys tomorrow morning, probably. Take care.